So I think it's important that we know a little bit of the neurochemistry of actually forming habits. And for this, there's primarily two brain regions that I need you to know about. You need to know about the prefrontal cortex and you need to know about the basal ganglia. The way that I like to think about it is your prefrontal cortex, which is located in this front area of your brain, is basically the CEO of your company. The prefrontal cortex is responsible for any executive functioning. So if you're trying to think your way through a math problem, or if you're really having to sit down and problem solve, this is primarily done through the prefrontal cortex. The second area is the basal ganglia. This is located near the brainstem, or near the core of your brain, if you will. The basal ganglia is responsible for a lot of our habitual actions and will actually drive our desires in pretty profound ways. The basal ganglia is basically the employees of your company. So you have your CEO, which is the prefrontal cortex, and you have the employees, which are the basal ganglia. Now, if you have a well-trained staff that will continue to execute proper business functions, then your company is going to make it much further and be much more successful overall. But the way that you teach your employees is first the CEO teaches the first employees, and then they continue to teach employees as they come through. In a very similar way, when we're first learning a habit, a lot of the work is done by the prefrontal cortex, but the more we engage in this activity, the deeper it wires its way into our brain and into the basal ganglia. And the basal ganglia, again, is responsible for a lot of the automatic behaviors that we engage in. So you don't want to rely on your CEO to do everything. You want to have competent employees that will keep pushing your company forward. There's one other part that I really want to touch on, and that is the myth of the 21-day habit. This is something that I'll often hear clients bring up to me, and they'll say, oh, habits, that takes 21 days to build, and then, it's built. This was actually popularized by a plastic surgeon who figured out that once a patient has gone through plastic surgery, it takes on average 21 days for them to adjust their appearance. Now, popular media has completely bastardized this and taken this and said, oh, it takes 21 days to actually form a habit. That couldn't be further from the truth. What people have kind of settled on now is somewhere around, 65 to 66 days. There's a fairly popular study that came out that said that. Based on the difficulty of the habit that people are trying to build, it might take a little bit longer, it might take a little bit less, but on average, it'll take 55 to 66 days. And I don't like this answer either. So I don't like thinking of habits as a dichotomy. Either it's formed or it isn't. You hit 21 days, you hit 66 days, and then it's like you made it. The habit is formed. I think it's far more productive to think about trying to develop habits over your lifetime. Things become way easier and they may become much more automatic at 66 days, but you don't want to think that you just have it in the pocket forever. You need to acknowledge and recognize that habits sometimes fall out of our habits and we need to reestablish them. But it doesn't benefit you to think, oh, now that I've done this for a couple months, I'm good for the rest of my life. No. Take the approach of, I have established this habit right now, it's going really well. Maybe in a few months, I'll need to re-up on this habit and keep it going. But now that you know kind of the framework of how to establish habits, it's going to be that much easier to get back on the horse if you ever fall off.